To coincide with the release of Terminator Genisys, I took a look at the franchise's history with video games. Despite the killer concept behind these films, there haven't really been any good ones. Heck, past the first two movies, the two sequels and the TV show weren't that great either. With that pleasant introduction aside, let's dive into the apocalyptic nightmare wreckage that is Terminator. The first movie had 4 games based on it. The game that you're seeing now is the Super Nintendo game, which is brutally difficult due to no continues, long levels, and enemies that pop out of nowhere. The other 3 games are structured differently, but follow the same premise of the film. However, there was a 5th game that never saw the light of day. Not as a Terminator game, at least. Sunsoft is one of the most unsung heroes of the NES era who produced some pretty good licensed games, like Batman. Journey to Celia started off as a Terminator game, but before completion, Sunsoft lost the license. Instead of completely scrapping the project, they reworked assets and it became the pretty decent, Mega Man-esque Journey to Celia's. Looking at it now, well, it's pretty obvious. Let's look now at Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Finally, a game that allows players to control Schwarzenegger as the Terminator. This is the Super Nintendo game. How does this one stack up? Well, as you can see, it's ugly, it controls horribly, and it's just plain boring. Oh, but wait, there are still 7 other games to look at. Surely one of these must be cool, right? How about a chess game, or a slot machine? Don't those sound... Alright, let's just move on. Next, Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines. 12 years later, fans received T3. In video game timeline, it was less of a wait as most of the projects came out long after the actual production of the films. Anyway, there are 4 games based on Rise of the Machines, and 2 of them are directly named after the movie, one being a first-person shooter and the other being a pinball set. Terminator 3 War of the Machines was a first-person shooter for the PC. It's like a poor clone of Star Wars Battlefront where players could join the side of Skynet or the human rebels. A cool concept, but not a great game. The last game, the one that you're seeing now, was called Terminator 3 The Redemption. Despite the dull visuals and repetitive gameplay, it's not bad. It at least lets players tear through robots like mincemeat as a good old Schwarzabot. Lastly, we have Terminator Salvation. Thankfully, this film only has 2 games. One was for the arcade, and the other was for last-gen systems. While the movie wasn't great, it did set up a decent apocalyptic world, something the previous 3 movies barely showed. Neither the movie nor the game lived up to the aesthetic, though. Who wants to fight ball bots or crab droids in place of horrifying Terminators? Since the last movie, there have also been mobile and PC browser games like Terminator Revenge or Skynet Rampage, but they're also not great. And yes, there is a mobile game based on Genisys, which is... yeah, you guessed it, it's garbage. These are all pretty much garbage. Is there any hope for a good game within the series? Well, yes, sort of. Let's end on a positive note and look at the best Terminator game, which isn't really a Terminator game. Binary Domain takes place in 2080 AD. Most of the world has been flooded and humans now heavily depend on robots. You, Sergeant Dan Marshall, and your tactical force, Rust Crew, are tasked with eliminating the threat known as Hollow Children, synthetic robots that look and act like humans. The stage, Japan. It's not totally original, but its execution on tired plot devices make it stand out. The best part of Binary Domain is the connection you'll forge with your teammates, as they're all diverse and well acted. It's like a fun summer blockbuster movie, very reminiscent of a little thing called Terminator. Binary Domain is a squad-based shooter, as I previously mentioned. You can choose 1 to 2 teammates to accompany you. The friendly AI and voice recognition works surprisingly well, though it can be wonky at times. Directing your team to the best of your ability is crucial because you won't be able to survive the robot hordes alone. Depending on your actions, they'll either like or dislike you too, which is kind of a nice concept to the game. Overall, the combat and level designs are great, though some of the in-between chapter sections are a mixed bag. From underground, derelict outskirts to upper society, Binary Domain's take on Japan breathes life not far removed from reality. The graphics are sleek and shiny, the character models, especially enemy robots, have a great attention to detail. The fact that robots can have body parts blown off and still crawl towards you, again like a Terminator, is just thrilling. The soundtrack is great for the moments and intense combat, but nothing you'll exactly remember. Even the voice acting got a special treatment, as the Japanese will speak their native tongue to each other, but switch when your English-speaking crew is around. It's a nice attention to detail. Now, if that doesn't sound like an amazing Terminator game, well, you should be ashamed, and Skynet's gonna come to you and blow up your wherever you are right now. But for serious, just get a copy of this game, dust off those last-gen consoles, and just have a blast. Trust me, it's a lot better than Terminator Genisys, or really any of the other movies past Trade 2. Until next time, see ya.